we come to August the 23rd, 1968. And on the 19th, which is a Monday, we received a flash message, a Zulu message, and said attack imminent. And so I stamped it and took it over to see the colonel. It was about 10:30, quarter to 11. Knocked on the door, and he answered the door butt naked with a 1911 45 in his hand. And I said, sir, you have a flash message. He looked at it, gave it back to me. He says, I'll take care of it. I went back to my post there. I got off at midnight. And just before midnight, I'd say about a quarter to 12 or so, he showed up. And what happened after that, I don't know. On Tuesday, the 20th, about the same time, and this time Sergeant Danny West, he was an E8 at the time, and I was given a Zulu message, attack imminent. Danny West went ahead and took the message, gave it to the colonel. A few minutes later, Danny West comes back, goes right by me and goes back to his post there. As far as I knew, there were only two messages, two Zulu messages. We fast forward to 2017, and I meet, I knew him. I knew Bill Barkley, but he was in the back corner there with Jason Hardy. And Jason calls me over and he says, hi, Gene, how many messages were there prior to the attack on the 23rd? 2. Barkley says, no, it was only 1. For some reason or other, he had gotten the Zulu message. I had stepped out of my cubby, my little booth there. He went right by me because he didn't see me there and took the last message to the colonel. So he thought there was only 1. And Bill had only been there maybe a day or 2, so he did not know about the previous 2 messages. So all these years I thought there was only 2. Barkley thought there was only 1. And it was rather interesting, a conversation we had after that. But shortly after that, let me backtrack a little bit. At supper time, Bobby Talmadge Alphen, who was one of my commo buddies back in training group, had mentioned to me, he says, hey, Pugh, he says, you want to come over and watch the movie? What movie? He says, well, since we can't see the movie because we're working, he says, we'll get the film and we'll show it at the talk, at the old talk. He says, come over after your shift. Well, when I got off, there's Talmadge. I went to the urinal, and it felt like if someone had just sucked all the energy out of me. And I said, you know what? I'll give him my regards and my apologies, but I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. Sometime around after 2:15, something like that. Heard some muffled explosions, rifle fire, automatic rifle fire. And I had the corner room on the southwest corner of the hooch. And I looked out the door, and right there, a Viet Cong homemade grenade just rolled by. In my room, I had visitors because it was a transient barracks. I had Lieutenant Dahl, Lieutenant Potter, and the other permanent party there was John Dodd. He slept on the bunk above me. And Captain Mike Lamb was also there. And there was another person who I don't know. There was another person in there, but I don't know who that individual was. And I said, grenade. And it took a long time for it to kind of explode. And Dahl says, well, where in the hell is that grenade? I says, right out there. And sure enough, like two dumb idiots, we go there by the door. And that's when the grenade decided to explode. Now, the way we were positioned, I believe that the lieutenant got the majority of the shrapnel, because I only got just minor stuff on my right shoulder. And then we had an explosion, knocked everybody on our feet. We started yelling and saying, hey, is everybody okay? Lieutenant Dahl puts on his pants and he says, the son of a bitch is going to the other end of the barracks. And I'm running right behind him. Lieutenant Dahl was kind of like a wrestler type. Had no neck. I think they call him no neck. Hefty kind of a guy, kind of a fire plug kind of a guy. He's running down the barracks barefooted. He gets to the far end, and I hear his bang, bang. Got you, son of a bitch. And then the next breath, I'm hit. So I go out and start dragging him into the barracks. And I could feel the bullets going by my bare torso and snapping right next to my ear. It's an experience that you just wish that they could hit you instead of feeling it that way. Was able then to pull him into the first room, but then I realized, that's not going to work. So I went to the second room and I yelled for a medic. And out of nowhere, this medic appears. Now, based on the description that I've told other people, we believe that it could be George Bacon. Again, I've never met George before, but based on the description that I've given to other people, that he was kind of on the tall, kind of lanky, kind of a guy, dark hair, that it could have been George Bacon. Again, I don't know. Shortly after that, Melville Westerfield shows up. And he is fully dressed. His hair is combed. He comes rushing into the barracks. And I tell him, hey, he grabbed his gear and he rushes out. I tell him not to go out there. But he survived the attack that night. I decide then to go across the hall to the front room. And shortly after that, Captain Lamb shows up. And he came that close to getting shot. Mainly, I didn't recognize him at the beginning, but what saved him was the fact that at supper time, he sat right across from me at chow in chow. So I was able to recognize him kind of quick. And I said, Captain, you better stick close to me. And his eyes got real big. And he goes, yeah, okay. And after a while, we could hear all sorts of commotion, explosions going on outside, automatic fire. You could hear the staccato of the AK-47, the burp of the M16, CAR-15s. And I told the captain, I said, hey, I'm going to go back and check on the lieutenant. So I go across the hall and check on the lieutenant. And there was a sound. It's very hard to describe the sound, but it's a sound like if someone is sneaking up on you. And I could hear it in the hallway. It was dark. And I saw a person framed in the doorway. And right then and there, an explosion from the old talk just lit up the area, exposed the Viet Cong that was right there, had an AK-47, tan shorts, had a belt across his chest. I saw him, he saw me. It was just like a light bulb. You know how light bulbs go off, flash? And then it was dark. We both shot at each other in the dark. Bang, bang, 2 shots apiece. Thump. And shortly after that, I hear a voice from the outside saying, hey, all you personnel better get out of that building, especially if you have any wounded. So I said, hey, Captain, did you hear that? He said, yes. I says, we're going to come out. So we're getting ready to lift up the Lieutenant Dahl. And as the medic, again, George, puts his arm on my left shoulder, he goes, what the hell is that? I had splinters on my left shoulder. I didn't even know that I got. And we dropped the lieutenant. He wasn't happy about that. And he starts just pulling splinters in the dark. Just starts feeling around, starts pulling splinters out of me. And so we lift up the lieutenant, says, hey, Captain, we're going to come out on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, we come out, and he's covering us, and we go down the hallway. And then I notice that there's a fire in my room. We take the lieutenant out, and outside between the 2 barracks, the senior NCO barracks and our barracks, was a Jeep. With Sergeant Bob Scully was driving it. In the back of it was John Dodd. There was another guy sitting next to him. No, I'll take that back. John Dodd was in the front seat. So then we put the lieutenant in the front seat, put John Dodd in the back seat, and then Pat Watkins show up with a guy named Kaufman. I think it was Kaufman. And Kaufman is hurt. And he literally slams Kaufman on top of the hood of the Jeep, and he yells at him. He says, listen to me, Hoffy. Kaufman says, if you die on me, so help me God, I'm going to kill you. Which I thought was logical. And a flare goes up, and Scully looks at me and he goes, you're wounded. And that's the first time I've noticed. I have a tendency to be a bleeder. And he says, get to the dispensary with me. They're still talking there for a second. So I go rushing back into the barracks where the fire is. And I take out this duffel bag that's on fire, not knowing that it's my duffel bag. And I take it outside. And I follow Scully and this other guy that's with me. He's Hispanic looking. Of course, you have to remember this is dark. Flares are going off and on. And you're not really thinking about names or what have you. So we make it to the dispensary. Scully's helping some of the guys out of the Jeep. Now walk in, and there's a guy on the floor with a big, huge hole on his right side. And then I figured that that's not the place for me. And so I look at the guy that was with me, the Hispanic guy. I says, we don't have any business here. So we leave. And we start going back to the original position where we were. And all of a sudden, there's two Jeeps that go right behind us. Like as if they were going back to the dispensary. And this is where it gets a little confusing. There was a Jeep that went by. In a nanosecond, another Jeep is going, but in the opposite direction. So I don't know if it was two Jeeps or one Jeep. But right in there, there's a muzzle flash of someone shooting at the Jeep. So I engage the muzzle flashes. And when I do that, flare goes off. And all of a sudden, the ground around us starts to erupt. I hit the ground. And after a while, I look up and I see this guy falling off the water tower. So I told the guy that's with me, I says, let's get the hell out of here. So we go back to where we were before. And Colonel Smith from FOB4 shows up. And he says, you, meaning me, and they had a weapon. He says, there's machine gun fire coming from the S4. Take care of it. So I worked my way over to the corner of the senior where the E9s were. And I peeked around the corner, and sure enough, right across the road there into the S4 area, I saw these muzzle flashes. And right there to the right. And I started engaging. And right about that time, the muzzle flashes stop and there's an explosion. I mean, it's one of those little nanosecond things. And I look up and there's this big black sergeant there. And he goes, I used to be the all-army pitcher. So I gave him, I reached down and gave him about, I don't know, 4 or 5 grenades. I kept one. And right about that time, Colonel Warren shows up. Very calm, cool, and collected. And he looked at me and he goes, your position is at the talk. Get yourself over there and hold that position until relieved. I said, yes, sir. So I made my work over by the generators and so on and so forth, made my way to the talk, and I could see Ray Sinkowich. And I waved at him. I said, hey, Ray, it's me. And he says, well, hurry up, I'll cover you. So we got there, and there were 2 dead VC right next to him. And Bill Barkley was over there behind a generator at that point. And I told Ray, I said, hey, Ray, just talk to the colonel. He says, we're to hold this position until relieved. In the meantime, we're getting, there's Ray, the one on the right anyway. There are mortar rounds and explosions going on everywhere. And so he says, okay, the best position to hold this post is across the street. We had some bunkers there. So we got to the bunkers, flare goes up, it starts floating in our direction. And right about then, I see a group of guys running towards the front gate. And I was just getting ready to engage them. And I see one of the guys wearing red pajamas. And so I remember, dropping my weapon down, and Ray says, what's the matter? I says, Viet Cong don't wear red pajamas. So that was it. So we spent the night there. But It was raining mortar rounds. And then you could hear something going on at the top of Marble Mountain. And of course, years later, I find out that Larry Trimble, gambler, was up there along with Cecil Ames. And Larry saved the camp. He could hear the mortars being fired from the south end of the mountain, and at the base of the mountain, actually. And he worked his way down this little trail where he could see them. And he dropped some grenades, M79 machine gun, and Car 15 fire. Eliminated that mortar pit. And shortly after that, there was a ground assault to eliminate Larry. And Larry, in the way he was positioned, because the Vietnamese that was with him could not get there with him to give him supporting fire. So he handled that by himself. Larry saved the camp. Had the North Vietnamese overran that mountaintop, that little patch of ground, they had command of the entire camp. They would have inflicted a lot of casualties. We had 16, there we are. We have Cecil Ames and Larry. Larry's the one with the mustache and the tattoo. And Larry saved the camp. There is no doubt about it. We had 16 casualties that night. Most of the casualties occurred within the first 20 minutes of the attack. We had 40 Vietnamese killed, and we had over 78 wounded. And then a lot of the wounded, men that were wounded did not report their wounds because they felt that they were minor. And so that was basically it. But yeah, Larry saved the camp. Pat Watkins did a lot of stuff on the ground. He got the Distinguished Service Cross. Captain Charlie Pfeiffer, he did quite a bit. A lot of the stuff that he did was over there by the mess hall. And then we have Travis Mills. There's Charlie the Tuna Pfeiffer. Travis Mills got shot 5 times and was wounded 5 times. It was wounded 5 times. And in the hooch, in the hooch he was in, he got shot when he got out of the hooch. But when the guy raked the hooch with an AK-47 fire, a guy by the name of Crab was wounded in the leg. And so they had to rush him to the hospital. So finally, Blatherwick, another lieutenant, was able to commandeer a Jeep, pick up Crab, and then pick up Travis. By that time, Scully had gotten wounded severely, got wounded in the head. And they were afraid they were going to lose him. So they were able to get a box truck, a box ambulance and put Scully there, Crab, excuse me, excuse me, and someone else. They needed a door gunner. And guess who they picked to become a door gunner? Travis Mills. Shot 5 times. He's the door gunner on the ambulance. So yeah, that's how it was that night. The next morning, as we came out, you know, it was, hey, glad to know that you're okay. What about someone said, oh, they're okay. I saw him over there by the latrine. What about, so, oh yeah, he's okay. He's over there by the hooch, that kind of stuff. We were still getting some sniper fire, ineffective. It was a surreal feeling. The old talk was still burning. There were 3 bodies there. At the time, I did not know that those bodies belonged to Talmadge Alphen and Bobby Wesaka in Voorhees. Did not know that at the time. But the enemy had, and again, the numbers will fluctuate a little bit. Some people say 38, some people say 41, actual body count. A couple of days later, after the attack, we found 7 bodies hastily buried by the south fence. You have to remember that FOB4 was basically built on sand, beach sand. So what they were able to do was just throw some sand on these guys. But with the hot tropical heat, these bodies started to percolate. And I mean percolate. And you could smell death through the entire camp. You could almost taste it. The Marines reported back to us that they had seen 21 freshly dug graves in the adjacent village that was right south of us. After the attack, and just recently we found out that it was the 22nd. Some people say it was the 23rd. Some people say the 22nd Sapper Battalion, Viet Cong Sapper Battalion, that attacked us. And they had 167 guys inside the camp. So I think we did okay. I think we did okay.
I've got some photos that Miss Bonnie Cooper has of some of y'all that were on the compound. And, of course, there's the legend of Travis Mills right there.
Yeah.
He, as a matter of fact, I believe he was the first, the head honcho at when Longton finally started running 1-0 school.
That's correct. He was. He sure was. He was the 1-0 there. I mean the OIC. The OIC.
Ed Sawicki here. There's Mr. Fife, Chuck's Hatchet Forces. Armenta, Sawicki, Ron Jungling.
Right.
I'm not Mr. Surface. I don't remember. Bill Surface, maybe. I can't remember his.
I remember his name.
Gosh, Ron Pete. No, not Ron Peters. Jungling. Mr. Surface, and is it Bill Kern or Steve Kern? There's Ed Lacine, and then of course there was an album for the for the KIAs that were here, and
Right.
sadly not all of them are labeled, but we've got Master Sergeant Raymond Norris, Paul Douglas, Lieutenant Paul Potter, Richard Pegram, Donald Welch, First Lieutenant Ed Miller, Harold Voorhees, Tony Santana.
Right.
Again, that's Mr. Norris, Mr. Tommy Kicklitter, Steve Varney,
right.
Albert Walters,
yes.
There's Mr. Bobby
Wisaka.
And I can't pronounce that at all. Capshack. Well, I know Mr. Ron survived, so maybe that's Mr. Kearns that passed away. I don't know. Wow. Mr. Welch, Donald Welch. Okay, there we go. I'll have to get this posted because Miss Bonnie Cooper has done amazing work for the SOA, and I need to get.
She's an angel. She's an angel.
And that map I showed earlier, she spent years, guys, putting all of that, speaking to Mr. Gene and all of the survivors, and I'll get that posted to where y'all can look at her work. I mean, there's nothing quite like it. She's done.
When we were getting ready to do the 2018 breakfast for the survivors and for the next of kin, Doug Gudshall was organizing it at the time. And I don't know how Bonnie got into it, but she got into it I believe it was on the second phone call that we had. And oh my God, it was a blessing. I mean, an absolute blessing. And she just took the reins of it, and we just kept feeding her information and what have you. We each had our own little thing that we had to do, our contribution to it. Brick.
William Brick.
Yeah. He was, no, I take that back. He did something. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, his father was there. Anyway, but he owns a shop that does various mementos and what have you, T-shirts, and he was able to do the printing of the plaques. I got a hold of the wood, and he sent me the plaques, so I got them done, and then we were able to get the inscriptions here. And so I took those plaques to the convention that year. Wow. So yeah, we all did our contributions and so on and so forth. And Bonnie, she took the crux of it. She got a lot done. So yeah.
She, as a matter of fact, for those of y'all that are on Facebook, she is the lady that runs the SFA memorial post that you see every day, literally every day. Yeah, she is sharing deaths and keeping up with not only the SOG men, but the SF men. And to be honest, without her, I don't know what, I don't know how it would be, because she is such a pivotal figure in keeping all of this together. Her work at SOAR, she barely has time to interact and hang out with people because she's working nonstop to make sure.
I know. In fact, she's my brother. She's our brother. And then anybody has any questions with that, just she's our brother. So, and it's but yeah, she's our brother.
She's an official. She's an actual. As far as I know, she is the only full-on member on her own right, just like the recon men were. I thought I heard that she is an actual member, and
she is. Yeah.
So that should let y'all viewers know just how highly Mr. Gene and the men think of her and her work that she's been doing. It's
yeah.
just outstanding. She's one hell of a lady for what she's been doing and continues to do.
Yeah, definitely.
I know. I'm trying to think here.